Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Ballava Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Ballava Girivardhari. Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Ballava Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Ballava Girivardhari. Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Privrajagacharya Astu Tarasata Sri Shriman. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Privrajagacharya Astu Tarasata Sri Shriman. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shri Shri Kishore Kishore Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Shri Baladev Shri Mati Subhadra Maharani Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gauranitai Ki Jai. Vaishnav Sangha Ki Jai. Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the sum devotees. All glories to the sum devotees. All glories to the sum devotees. All glories, Shri Shri Guru and Garanga Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Knowledge to Bhara Krishna's revelation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 78, the killing of Dantavakra and Romaharshan. And it's interesting because I didn't have the book, so I was just looking up the verse on my phone. And either the wrong verse was sent to me or I looked it up wrong on the phone. So I was looking at 2 chapters earlier, but it's almost the exact same verses. It's just a different demon. I was looking at chapter 76, which is Shalva swore in the presence of the kings, I will rid the earth of the Yadavas. And in this one, we're going to be reading about how Dantavakra was similarly challenging Krishna. So it's 2 chapters later. Krishna is still cleaning the earth for all of us. So we're grateful that he does that. And we'll read for that. But so we're reading on text number 3. And then we'll read, I think I was asked to do 4 also, I believe. Very short purport to 3. So I prepared for 3 and 4, chapter 76, so we'll see how Krishna inspires us. Tam tata ayantam alokya gadam adaya satvaraha avaplutya rahat Krishna sindhum vela Eva prachadhat tam tatayantam alokya gadam adaya satvaraha avaplutya rahat Krishna sintum veleva pratyadhat tam tatayantam alokya gadam adaya satvaraha avaplutya rahat Krishna sintum veleva pratyadhat tam tatayantam alokya gadam adaya satvaraha avaplutya rahat Krishna sintum veleva pratyadhat. Looks like it's not folded up just like this. Leveha prachadat. Where meanings tam, him, tata, in this way, ayantam, approaching, Alokya, seeing. Gadham, his club. Adaya, taking. Satvaraha, quickly. Avaplutya, leaping down. Rahat, oh, you didn't look. Oh, you knew. Okay, good. Yeah. Krishna, anybody know what that means? Lord Krishna, Sindhum, the sea. Vela, the shore. Eva, as. Prachadat, checked. Translation. Seeing Dantavakra approach, Lord Krishna quickly picked up his club, jumped down from his chariot, and stopped his advancing opponent just as the shore holds back the ocean. Please repeat. Seeing Dantavakra approach, Lord Krishna quickly picked up his club, jumped down from his chariot, and stopped his advancing opponent just as the shore holds back the ocean. Purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C.Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada writes, quote, when Krishna appeared before Dantavakra, his heroic march was immediately stopped, just as the great furious waves of the ocean are stopped by the beach. And I think I'll read 4 too. Gadam udyamyam karusho mukundam prahadurmadaha drishya drishya bhavan adya mama drishti patam gataha. Translation. Raising his club, the reckless king of Karusha said to Lord Mukunda, what luck to have you come before me today. Purport. Srila Sridhar Swami explains that after having waited for 3 lifetimes, Dantavakra, formerly a gatekeeper in Vaikuntha, could now return to the spiritual world. Therefore, the transcendental meaning of his statement is, how fortunate I am that today I can return to my constitutional position in the spiritual world. And the next verse, Dantavakra will refer to Krishna as Matuleya, a maternal cousin. Dantavakra's mother, Shrutashrava, was the sister of Krishna's father, Vasudeva. Omigenatamyanda Shajananjana Shalakaya Chakshtu Umanitamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanyamanovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadama Yamtadati Swapanantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasani Gaura Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. So, as I mentioned, I looked at chapter 76, where the Lord was dispensing with Shalya. So in my notes, wherever I see Shalya, I'm just going to say Dantavakra, and we'll do the best we can. So, Dantavakra's mood. It's interesting first to see how the commentators, because he's appeared as a demon, as we know the whole story. And so he's appearing as a demon. This is his 3rd long major birth with different pastimes of the Lord, different advents of the Lord. So here's his 3rd one. So he's speaking as a demon. In the next verse, he calls Krishna a fool, and I will kill you with my thunderbolt club. He says unintelligible, all these different things. But the Acharyas see, well, that's what he said, but there's another, as it describes, transcendental meaning. So in this one, he's saying, what luck that you've come before me, and I'm going to kill you, Krishna. But actually, the charge is saying this deeper meaning is that from his spiritual position, what luck that you've appeared before me, and now you're going to finish my body, and I can go back to my position in the spiritual realm. So in one sense, it's interesting because this kind of reflects the view we are aspiring to develop as devotees in this world. The materialistic person is measuring everything good or bad, things that I like, things that I don't like, friends and enemies, honor and dishonor, ultimately in terms of the body. You know, I belong to this nation. We win the soccer match, I'm happy. We lose the soccer match or the World Cup, I'm miserable. Right? I was in Barcelona for a conference about 2 weeks ago, and I was walking back from the conference center, which is pretty close to the temple, and one woman ran down the street yelling something in Spanish. I had no idea what she was saying. Big smile. Ran right by me. I was thinking somebody won a football game or soccer, something. And of course, that was the day Spain defeated whoever they defeated. It wasn't France. Somebody, maybe it was France. And then a few minutes later, because I'm walking, you get into the area where the temple is, and it's a big party area, and people were all standing in front of the TV screens and yelling, and like in bars, they have plebeian. There was 100 people standing out. So why are they all happy? Because they're thinking, I'm Spanish. And if the Spanish team wins, hooray. And if the Spanish team loses, boo. Or they're thinking, I'm Democrat, right? Just like now. Now we stand a chance. We've got a hope. We've got hope. And the Republicans before now, they don't stand a chance. It's going to be us. Or people are thinking that I get a raise and this is good. I've got more money to provide for my needs and take that vacation I want and to buy the things for my kids that I want to buy and to get the new car or something along that line. So they're thinking, okay, I got the promotion. So this is good because now my name, I get a bigger plaque, I get a bigger office. And if I have trouble with the boss and I get demoted, I get a smaller office, I get a smaller plaque, or maybe get fired. Well, that's bad. So in this way, in this world, our lives are completely manipulated by our internal definition of what's good and what's bad, based ultimately on the body, the gross body and the subtle body, which naturally means everything connected to the body. So again, if I'm thinking I'm Spanish, when the Spanish team wins, I have a good day. And if they lose, I have a bad day. And if my party wins, I have a good day. If my party loses, I have a bad day. And in this way, people they spend their time and their years and their energy pursuing things that bring some sense of positiveness. They've achieved some goal, but the Shastra ultimately describes what good is that goal if at the end you leave everything behind you and the soul goes somewhere else. So you can become very famous, just like the last few days I saw some headlines. I sent a message to Malati. There's a story of the mantra rock dance that many of you will remember. When Prabhupada first came to San Francisco, and Mukunda Prabhu at that time, and Shamasundar and Malati, and I guess Jamuna was there. I think Gurudas was there, the first devotees in San Francisco, and they arranged what was quite a revolutionary thing. They arranged this big kirtan, and to draw the young people in, they got the biggest bands of the San Francisco area at the time, which turned out to be very big bands for decades. So the lead, I guess, guitarist for Moby Grape, or maybe he's the bass guitarist, I'm not sure, just died a couple of days ago. Can't remember his name. So I sent a message out saying to everybody, hey, this person died. You may remember he was, because the reason that Moby Grape had performed, they had their bands lined up, which were, again, those of us of my generation, big names, Grateful Dead, Janis Joplin, and was it the Big Brother and the Holding Company or something, and Jefferson Airplane at that time. And they needed one more band. And Malati was like out walking around and somehow heard these guys practicing in their garage. and she invited him. And the devotees were really upset. Malati, how can you do that? Malati sometimes acts very spontaneously in her service to Prabhupada. So she said, don't worry, they'll be fine. As it turns out, everybody thought they were fine. The concert was a success. So many people were introduced to Krishna consciousness. So this person's died to bring it up to the today. So hopefully he had a continued spiritual life and some progress during his life after that initial contact with Srila Prabhupada. Maybe not. But whatever name and fame he had, now he gets his name in the newspaper around the world one last time. Maybe one day they'll put one of his guitars in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that'll be there for a couple hundred years. But basically, what has he achieved? Where does his soul go? Who knows? Does he know? Like that. So, therefore, we're being taught to develop a different perspective, right? Omegana Tamienda Shajananjana Shalakaya. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge. So what is that torchlight of knowledge? Part of it is learning and training ourselves and our consciousness that when things go up for the body, or for the bodily concept of life, or go down for the body or the bodily concept of life, I'm not overwhelmed by that. My conscious doesn't just go wherever those things go. That we're actually training ourselves to see some happiness is coming based on materialistic measurements. Whatever, I got a raise, or I got some praise, or the weather's nice today, or I got a good report from my doctor, or, in my case, the shirt I bought in Mayapur, 1 out of 6 actually fit, hooray. All these different kinds of things. To change our consciousness to see that there's some apparently good things and some apparently bad things, but as a devotee, they're all good for me. That even the difficulties and the suffering in this world, and this is sometimes very hard to see, especially because sometimes the suffering is quite intense, but to see that ultimately this is all, as a devotee, it's all good for me. Prabhupada describes a couple of purports in the Gita. The devotee sees whatever happiness comes is by the grace of the Lord. I don't deserve this because I have so many impious things I've done in this life and who knows previous life. So, thank you, Krishna, for this beautiful day. I don't deserve the beautiful day. Isn't it miraculous? I was sitting when we were, because not being for me, I'm not used to seeing this beautiful sunshine come in and on Prabhupada's face. It's stunning to see the way the sun comes in this building in the morning. That's a gift from Krishna and the fresh air. In Washington, D.C., it's about 15 degrees hotter. It doesn't feel cool in the mornings this time of year. So that's Krishna's gift to us. So thank you, dear Krishna, for giving me this opportunity. And then when the challenges come, that's also hard. I made a big boo-boo I don't have to talk about here, but yesterday, and wrote to my authorities and said, if you want to censure me for this, you're probably justified in doing so because I made a big mistake. So part of it is, of course, recognizing I made a mistake. But then the other part of it is, will I see as Krishna's mercy whatever difficulties come from that? It's fairly easy to say, okay, I stubbed my toe. A totally materialistic person, generally their response, not always, but oftentimes response is to get angry, to turn around and even, curse the sidewalk as if it's the sidewalk's fault and he or she had nothing to do with it. Somebody cuts them off in traffic to curse it. We blame others, isn't it? That's the material. I don't want to take responsibility. It's your fault. No, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. And, fights start from that and wars start from that. But to actually see and to pray to develop this vision that whatever difficulties I experience, they're good in that, one, I'm burning off my karma. We believe in this principle. You do good, you get good back. You do bad, you get bad back. So why is there bad happen to me sometimes? Because it's my reaction for things I've done in this lifetime or past lifetimes. And to really be able to sit back, I mean, I know I still carry certain things in my life I have not yet processed. You know, painful experiences, painful relationships, painful way things happened that are still like in the back of my mind, like I haven't quite given up my materialistic response to those things, but to actually get right with myself and with Krishna that, Lord, actually those things were all good for me. You know, the way that, whatever, just making stuff up. The way that kid beat me up in 6th grade in school, that I've hated him ever since, that was good for me. The fact that I lost that job to a less qualified person, that was actually good for me. The fact that maybe even sometimes some people very dear to us leave this world earlier than we want them to. We don't wish that upon anybody, but that actually this is good for me, that it's helping me become detached from thinking this is my relative. I care about this person, I don't care about that. I mean, how many people die every day in Chicago in car accidents? A lot of people, right? But when one dies who's quote close to us, then we're sad, isn't it? Well, why aren't we sad about when other people die? Of course, it's natural. You have some more connection. But from a philosophical perspective, again, why am I happy when the Spanish team wins? And I'm sad when they lose. Why am I sad for the other people that lost? Just because of my identification with that. Why am I sad when my family member loses money or loses honor or loses some position? Why aren't I sad for others? So when that happens to me and to those I care about, an ignorant response is to get angry or to get depressed or to get bitter. A more knowledgeable response is to see that actually this world is not my home. I'm just passing through, and due to the reactions to my previous good, pious and bad, impious activities, I'm experiencing some pain and I'm experiencing some pleasure, but in the ultimate sense, it's all good for me because it wakes me up. Now, in the sense of is it good that people are suffering? No, it's not good that people are suffering. You think of the horrendous things that have gone on in history, you know, genocides left and right, even today all across the world, there's wars going on. Why? Because one particular leader thinks I need more power. And I want to go down in history as being the guy that got our empire back or that protected our empire or like that. So, and then they act in such a way to cause suffering to others. So that in itself is not good. We hopefully through our chanting and our distribution of Prabhupada's books and our expanding the Krishna consciousness movement and our supporting other organizations that are promoting pious things too, we can help minimize the storms of this material world. We can help minimize some of the unnecessary suffering that's going on, just like we're teaching people vegetarianism. When you stop and think about the literally billions of animals that are killed every year, I forget the number, but it's huge. It's a huge number. When you think about it, if you just think for a second, what would it be like to be, you're kind of swimming along in the ocean thinking everything's fine, and next thing you know, you're in a net, and they pull you up, and then you suffocate to death. I mean, what is that like? Or you're thinking you're living in some farm or some countryside and you're chewing the grass or you're eating the feed, and the next thing they load you in a truck and they send you to some place that's covered with blood on the floor. Imagine that, and it's not so hard to imagine because it's happened to human beings, not within my lifetime. I don't think anybody here, but within a few years before that. I was recently watching this one video on the United States and the Holocaust, which came out about a year ago, and wanted to watch it for some time. And it's some archival footage and reminded me, I mean, they rounded up human beings, millions of them, the Nazis did, and put them in camps and, took away their clothes, took away their jewelry, took away all their possessions, and killed them. It was just genocide. And they struggled for a long time. How are we going to manage killing so many people? How can we do it in a mechanized, efficient, effective way? How do we deal with all the bodies? How do we deal with this? How do we do it like that? So they use their human intelligence towards that. And, kind of like to the extent that I identify as I still do, unfortunately, to one extent. As an American, I'm watching these thinking, wow, the Germans are really, the Nazis were horrible. And then they get to the part in the show, which I never learned. They certainly didn't teach me this in American history class, which they should have, but they didn't. When they talk about how Hitler publicly stated, I'm following what I learned from the Americans. The Europeans needed more space, so they came to North America, and they literally had genocide of all the native peoples living here. They pushed them, one tribe after another, one state after another. Literally, the history of America is genocide against the Native American peoples. Some of it was out and out, get our armies together. Others of it was by disease, but others of it, we just kept moving you, take your 5,000 person tribe, whatever you had. And by the way, you've lived in, Georgia amongst the trees and that type of wildlife and fauna and water supplies. We're going to move you to Oklahoma in the prairie. Good luck. They have no culture for that. They don't know how to survive in that kind. We're just going to move you. Why? Because we want your land. So his whole idea about how we need more room for the German people. He got that from the Americans. At least that was the argument that he gave publicly. And when he talked about discrimination against Jews, and you have to wear a star, and you have to live in a certain ghetto, and you can't have certain jobs, he said it's heavy. He said we just learned that from the Americans. They did that, or at least he said, why are you criticizing? Same thing that's going on in America today. The whole civil rights era and all the persecution, the prejudice against African Americans. One line for whites, one line for blacks. He said, I'm doing the same thing. So it's like, oh my gosh, I never thought about it that way. But it's a fact. America certainly has wonderful things in our history, and fighting for the good causes in World War II, perhaps, and other things. At the same time, driven by lust for more land, driven by this bodily concept of life. We're the good people. We're the privileged people. It's our manifest destiny to rule over the other tribes of people do horrendous things. So all of that suffering that's going on, we hope by the sharing and the spreading of Krishna consciousness, we can help to purify people's hearts from lust and desire and anger and hate. Hate's a big one, hating of other peoples. We hope to improve that, to minimize that suffering by Lord Chaitanya's grace. And at the same time, as far as ourselves, to be able to see that the happiness that comes, I have to give the credit to Krishna. And the distress that comes, I also have to give the credit to Krishna, knowing that he's, as Prabhupada explains in Gita, he's minimized whatever karma I'm due by his kindness. He said, this is the way devotees should think. And also understanding these difficulties, actually, they're good for me because they help me become detached. They're actually helping me become detached. And when I think back in my own life about some of the I've had pretty privileged life compared to what a lot of people are going through in this world. When I think back of the times that were most difficult, those are things that led me to cry out to Krishna. I didn't even know it was Krishna at that time, but allowed me to go through different phases. This is nuts, Is this it? Is this the whole purpose of life? And I'm working so hard trying to achieve so many things and coming up with empty-handed again and again and again. And I'm cheated by friends and this and different kind of situations. And is that what it's all about? Just like Arjuna in the Gita, he's thinking, this is horrible. If I win, I have to kill all my relatives. And if I lose, my other relatives and myself get killed. What kind of crazy place is this? We read the other day in Sunday Feast, probably talked about perplexed, people being perplexed. So that perplexity is there. And as devotees and spiritual aspirants, we're understanding how to develop that vision. So same way here in this verse, the Dantavakra in his ignorance is calling out, oh, I'm going to kill you and do this and do that. But the Acharyas are saying, no, actually, in relationship to Krishna, there's a much deeper meaning. So the same way, the pleasures and pains of this world, we can think, they're good or they're bad. I might have mentioned, I remember years ago reading some article about, I guess the same week, some famous Hollywood woman, starlet, passed away as an old woman. And the same week, some big male star who was also a producer. And there was an whole article about their two lives, and she was beauty queen and this and that, and started this movie and famous this, and so many, boyfriends, husbands, lovers, whatever, and all these, these famous men, and how he was so rich and powerful, and he won this award and that award. And then at the end, it was like he became a drunk, she became ignored, she died in absolute abject poverty. And I was thinking, this is a classic story to remind me to become a devotee. At the end of the story, that I remember this, the writer said, in this way, their life was so up and down, but what a ride it was. I was thinking, what an ignorant fool. That's your reflection on their lives. The reflection should be, hey, everybody, wake up. If even they ended up losing everything at the end, why are we running around like a chicken with no head, pursuing the same things? We're never going to be as beautiful as she is. We're never going to be as rich as he is. We're never going to be as influential as he is. But look at the end, what the result was. So this is the lesson in this material world, and it's quite. We were talking yesterday when we went to we were driving to the rehabilitation center where Murari is, and that this world is, in some ways, it's so harsh, and at the same time, it is such a wonderful place of reawakening our relationship with Krishna. And if we choose to do so, then again, the difficulties, as well as the difficulties we try, and we gradually learn, we welcome them with an open heart. We try. And the relatively good things that come, we offer to our appreciation to Krishna. We don't think, right? Prakrite kritimani guna karmani sarvasha. We try to become free from being bewildered into thinking that I'm the doer, and to actually know that it's by the grace of Krishna, whatever these good things are that are coming my way. And the same way, ultimately, the difficulties, I may have trouble seeing it, but it's also the grace of Krishna, because he's helping me become detached from things that ultimately are temporary, ultimately must frustrate me, ultimately must be left behind. And why must they have to be left behind? Because they're really not good for us. They're not really good for us. It's like, the example Prabhupada gives, the child who's building his or her little sandcastles by the shore of the ocean. The parents like, okay, go do your nonsense stuff. But after a while, the tide's going to come in. You got to leave it. You have to leave it. It's going to wipe it. You come back tomorrow, there's just flat beach. But in the child's mind, it was such a wonderful creation. Such a wonderful, but it's all gone. So, that's one of the lessons that we can learn in studying here. Dantavakra, he was so intent. Of course, he's of a very evil personality, like describes in the 16th chapter. Demoniac person. It's amazing to think about. This is a very popular way of thinking about things today. It's very poetic. The demoniac person thinks, so much wealth do I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes. I mean, aren't most people thinking like that? Krishna says it's demoniac. So much is mine now, and it will increase in the future more and more. He is my enemy, and I have killed him, or beat him out in some business process, or humiliated him, or I got the award and he or she didn't, or however. And my other enemies will also be killed. I am the Lord of everything. Of course, this is more than the common illusion person thinks, but they tend to think, I'm the Lord of this little house. I'm the Lord of this apartment. I'm the Lord of this car. I'm the Lord of this whatever. We all tend to think like that. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. I'm the richest man, which of course no one can be. There's always someone richer. Surrounded by aristocratic relatives who are plotting how to get whatever you have, frankly. Not always, but a percentage. Somebody dies and all the relatives come out of the woodwork, right, to claim what was left behind. They're like when someone wins the lottery. All of a sudden, so many lost relatives and friends show up. You can go online and read about that. What happened to the people who win the lottery? Their lives are usually ruined because they so-called win. It's the same thing. You won, but you lost. And some days you lose, but then you go to church or mosque or temple and you pray, dear God, please help me. Well, what a victory that is. That one's actually come to the point of calling out to Krishna. So continue. There's none so powerful and as happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifices. I shall give some charity, and thus I shall rejoice. In this way, such persons are deluded by ignorance. Thus, again, the same word. Thus perplexed by various anxieties, bound by a network of illusions, they become too strongly attached. It's interesting. Again, it doesn't say attached. We're all attached. We have our natural consciousness. We naturally feel some connection to our families, children, parents, if they're still here, friends, home. There's naturally some sense of connection and attachment. That's not cast aside, but too strongly attached. Too strongly attached to what? Sense enjoyment. And thus they fall down into hell. Self-complacent and always impotent, deluded by wealth. Again, here's why it's not good. If you're so wealthy you become deluded by it, well, then it's your enemy. Prabhupada writes in one of these purports that the so-called happiness of the material world is actually the enemy of the conditioned soul. Which we have to take in context. It doesn't mean we don't want to be healthy and relatively happy, materialistic speaking, but understanding that it's coming from Krishna. Self-complacent, always impotent, deluded by wealth and false prestige, they sometimes proudly perform sacrifices in name only, just for name and fame, without following any rules or regulations. Bewildered by false ego, strength, see these same things. Strength, I have so much strength, but it makes me bewildered. Pride, lust, and anger. The demons become envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in their own bodies and in the bodies of others, and blaspheme against real religion. So that's how the materialistic mentality can become covered over. So we've got about 10 minutes. Stop. Any questions or comments anybody might like to make? Dantavakra is lucky because he's seen his end by the hand of Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, mentioning very nicely that Krishna, as soon as Arjuna surrendered and make him as a spiritual master, the first verse Krishna is telling in Bhagavad Gita that those who are learned, they don't care for the living persons or dead persons because they know these are all child's play. There's nothing more than that.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean we don't feel compassion, because in the verses earlier, Prabhupada explains the purport. Because of Arjuna's compassionate heart, he was qualified to hear the message. But then it's interesting. It doesn't care means not distracted from true knowledge and from true vision of what to do. So we are disturbed to see so much death and suffering, but we don't use that as impetus to try to go in our little hole and arrange for our own little palace and think we're going to keep death and old age and things out and don't care about the world. But no, we care very much about the world, and we want to provide the solution to the root causes, which is their forgetfulness of God and their spiritual identity. So yeah, thank you. Mataji, any comments? I know you gave class yesterday, so maybe you shared all your realizations on these points.
I was just contemplating what you were presenting, Anutama Prabhu, of this kind of constant striving that people have to, somehow make everything work. And it seems, natural part of the spirit to want to strive striving is very natural. Uh, so it seems so essential that devotees are there to actually assist in giving the message that there's someone that one can hold on to and derive strength from, just by virtue of the fact that this everything in one sense is doomed, as you were constantly pointing out, to have the opposite result of what one is thinking if one analyzes it intelligently. So I was just appreciating what you put across so strongly.
Yeah, that's one reason we really need devotee association. Because when those difficulties come, right now it's theory. How are we actually doing when dishonor comes, when physical pain comes, or emotional pain comes, or seeing our friends, family, colleagues going through difficulty? Are we able to maintain our spiritual perspective? And that's why devotees association is so important to help us in that. And at the same time, I know a lot of devotees that are trained as counselors and therapists, and they often, I might have talked about this last time I was here, they remind us that we shouldn't be impersonal to the point of thinking that in those difficult times, I'm going to use this word for purpose, mere philosophy can assist. We're sitting here on a beautiful summer day with the sun and the warm air, and we're all sitting comfortably on our mats. And there's going to be nice hot prasadam in a few minutes, and nobody's walking in the door with a gun, or nobody's rushing to the hospital. So here we can be a little more philosophical, and you can kind of train ourselves. But when others are going through difficulties, we have to be careful that in an effort to try to help them, we don't necessarily think that someone's whatever practicing Krishna consciousness for a day or 50 years, we have to tell them you're not the body. That's not your mother there lying in front of you. She's not the body. Well, I know that, but I'm still brokenhearted because I'm not going to see her anymore. So let's have a little, compassion and a little thoughtfulness. And I remember it was described, one of the devotees who teaches chaplaincy work and things like that. We have to be careful that sometimes we, in our enthusiasm to preach, we're thinking more about what's for me than what's for others. So I can kind of check it off the list. I went to, somebody was ill, and I went and I preached to them, and somebody was sad, and I preached. So I feel really good how I preached to them. But did I help them through their difficulty? And a lot of times that just means being with people, like you two have been doing regularly with Murari. He's going through difficult time, old age and retirement home and like that. So certainly we want to try to help remind people of Krishna and their relationship with Krishna, but to be careful we don't, in our kind of neophyte enthusiasm, lose track of what people really need. And sometimes they just need somebody to be with them. They don't need somebody to preach to them, whatever. I'm going through divorce, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to see my kids regularly in the future. So, you come and tell me, well, Prabhupada says don't be attached to your family. Well, thank you. You can leave now. I don't need to hear that. I need to hear, wow, it must be really difficult what you're going through, and things that give me strength and hope. So we have to be careful, that way too. We don't, we apply the philosophy, but in a sensitive way, time and place. Thinking, we talk about communications, thinking of what's in the best interest of the other person. Not just what my needs, interests, and concerns, but what are yours. I was mentioning one other thing. I had some notes which I didn't look at much during the class, but we talk about, okay, so what do we do ourselves to help apply this? And a big part of that is that we have to, we're following the process of bhakti, coming to the temple, having darshan, honoring prasadam, chanting Hare Krishna mantra, associating with devotees, the whole 9 processes of bhakti to try to purify ourselves. We have these habits, we have these mental patterns, emotional patterns, physical patterns, trying to purify ourselves from those. And as Krishna tells Arjuna, we're trying to become yogis, which means that we can control our minds gradually and our senses and direct them towards Krishna, and of course associating with devotees, so that gradually it becomes actually our, like they say, second nature. Actually, become our first nature, that we see everything and we hear and connect everything with Krishna. And Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad Gita, says we should try, I was trying to remember the exact word, but he mentions, as if in military discipline. That's a quote. And I think he maybe uses the word vigorously. We should apply ourselves vigorously or something like that to the practice, as if in the military discipline. So we have to, try hard with compassion for ourselves and for others, but we have to continue to try to the process of purifying ourselves so that we don't succumb, or that we we quit succumbing to this way of thinking and acting. So devotees, Prabhupada say devotees have a very bright future. The whole world in one sense is very bright if people wake up and realize the opportunity that they have. And to the extent that they wake up, and to the extent that they don't, is actually quite dark. See what's going on in the world today, it's quite dark. But the opportunity is always there. It's our choice. Yeah. Any other comments or questions before we wrap it up? No? Okay, we'll stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Shri Kishore Kishore ki jai. Gaur Premanandi.